2, 1. Hello, everyone. It is the Our Turf Football Podcast. I am Dana OG. I'm real excited about tonight's show. I'm not gonna lie. I'm real excited. So I took last year. Okay, so joining me, Lisa Johnson, Kate Arhar, Sonia Greenfield, the gang's all here. So here's the thing, guys. I didn't play fantasy football last year. I was burnt out. I was grumpy. I was sick and tired of. I didn't lose the year before. That's just it. I think I got second place. I just was over it. And
second place is the first loser.
It's damn right. And I was the first loser. Lisa's just doing that because she finally won. Finally, after 10 damn years, she finally won.
Hope you enjoyed your one moment of glory, Lisa.
So we are very excited because here in a few minutes, we are going to welcome Liz Loza. She works for Yahoo Fantasy Sports. She is fantastic. She knows more about the players than anyone I know. We're very excited. She's going to be joining us just here in a few minutes. But we got a couple topics to talk about first. All right. I just want to say, I told you so. I told you so. And then I remembered that I told you so. Tim Tebow was cut today from the Jacksonville Jaguars. His stint as getting the band back together with Urban Meyer is over. Raise your hand if you were surprised. That's what I thought. So here's really my question for you guys. I mean, we knew he was older. He was switching from quarterback to tight end. Was there any way that this could have worked that you would have seen, even if he had managed to I don't know, make the practice squad? Like what? Like I was baffled and I don't understand the thought process behind it. Go ahead.
One thing that surprised me is I thought Urban would have kept him in some way, shape, form, capacity, even if it was on the practice squad, to kind of work with little Sunshine in the locker room with his new quarterback who on his first play of the game, his first play as an NFL quarterback, I believe, got sacked, if I'm not mistaken. I thought he would have found a place somewhere for him. Wouldn't surprise me if he ends up joining their coaching staff in some, like the quarterback coach is an assistant coach or something, just to maybe do a little mentoring or something. I know you're laughing, but he and Urban are tight. I get it. Guys completely.
Well, why would you?
Weird.
Why would you bring on a guy who failed in the NFL and then failed again in baseball and then failed again in the NFL to coach someone to do what? Fail? I don't get.
He's a good dude.
Help me out.
I was about to say, I think it's just because he's a good dude. I mean, that's the only reason why you're keeping him around, right? Because he's a good dude. I don't think that if he wants to be successful, if Trevor wants to be successful, he can have Tim Tebow there kind of just to, it's all going to be okay, rainbows and sunshine. But I think he's going to need somebody else to be there to be like,
a real coach?
This is, like a real coach, like a real mentor. Somebody like that who's really going to be like, dude, this is what it's like. This is what it's about, So
this is what happens when you fail.
Right.
Lisa.
So not Gardner Minshew.
I know a guy.
No.
I know a guy.
Yeah. Lisa, talk some sense into these people. I'm telling you, this was a bad idea from the jump.
Did you watch that block? Seriously, I think all of America watched
the fact that you even just called it a block is offensive.
Right?
She's trying to be nice. She's turning over a new leaf.
I know blocks, and that was not
a block. I know a guy. I want to know a shot. I know a guy. Strictly why Urban did it. And even Urban said that, he wanted to give the kid a shot. As far as sticking around for Trevor, no, Trevor doesn't need that hot mess. He'll be fine. Like I said, it's a circus always around Tebow wherever he goes, isn't it? Exactly. It always is. But hey, it was. I know a guy. He let me try out. It didn't work out. Pat him on the back. Move on. Go back into the studio. Do what you do for college football. So.
But he was good at that. That's what I was confused about. Is that he actually was a pretty good, commentator. So stick with what you're good at, dude.
That's what I said too. But it's that I know a guy.
It's that I know a guy. It's that you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to try this. You know, it's that type of thing. And I'm
going to sell
Tebow
tickets.
And nobody tells me no.
Game.
So it's like that type of thing. So,
you know, it was interesting. There was a great tweet that was put out prior to the news of him being cut. And it was that this tweet was like, we get it. We know he's a good person. We know that he's, you know, attractive and can be like the face of a team. Like, we get that he was very good in college, but not all players translate to the NFL. And at some point you have to stop trying to force something that's not there. And I think that's kind of what was happening here for him. And so that was interesting. So I'd say go back, do what you're good at, go be the face of, you know, ESPN and roll with it that way. And we'll just kind of see how it goes. So nice try, Tebow. And now it's time to move on. All right. The other news that came out today was a big deal to me. Not going to lie. Jamal Adams got his contract that he was waiting for in Seattle. Now I'm going to tell you guys, I was real grumpy today because all this crap from like Pro Football Talk and like all of this other stuff was coming out. It's like, oh, they're going to franchise tag him. They're so far apart. When you looked at the numbers, you knew they weren't really that far apart and it was going to happen. So he signed a deal today, 4-year contract worth $70 million, $38 million guaranteed. Makes him the highest safety in the highest paid safety, in the NFL. Now, here's the thing. For a while, Jamal Adams was saying that he should be paid more like a defensive weapon because he doesn't just play safety. I mean, he plays linebacker half the time for Seattle, right? He's just that kind of all-around Swiss Army knife kind of a guy, and he wanted to be compensated for that. This was what Seattle came up with, making him the highest paid safety by a couple $1 million. I mean, it wasn't just barely. And so I think that was their term. So my question is for you guys, are there those players that maybe are being hindered salary-wise because of the position they play, but they do so much more for the team? And should they be compensated for that?
Didn't we have this conversation about Jimmy Graham a few years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we might have.
Tight end who ended up, didn't he go to Seattle? Went somewhere and wanted wide receiver money, even though he played tight end because he had,
That's exactly
you know what I mean?
What
he had as many catches and yards as the wide receivers did.
Mm-hmm.
I think as long as the draft, the rookie pay scale is still set up by draft position and by the position you play on the field, their contract negotiations that's still the basis of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. And I don't think that's necessarily wrong. Now the team then has the option to pay more in bonus structure or guaranteed money or whatever it is. Of course, that's up to the team. But then again, you also have to be careful about setting a precedent, right? In the future. And so I think that's where teams are going to be a little bit hesitant. Well, you know, he got his money and Seattle locked him down. And I could not be happier. I was thrilled with the trade when it happened. We needed that swag back in Seattle, and Jamal Adams definitely brings that back. Now we just have to sign Dwayne Brown, and they got to figure out whatever the heck's going on with TJ Watt over in Pittsburgh, because that's still a complete mess. So we have to see what's going to happen there.
They want their money.
They want, and they deserve their money. That's a whole nother. We could do a whole show on that.
Yes, we could.
Just on
maybe we should do a poll on Twitter or Insta.
Like what?
Or not? Yeah, should they get paid or not? Yeah,
they did that with Xavier Howard. The Dolphin fans did that with Xavier Howard because, you know, Xavier Howard did the same thing, and he set the market on the cornerback now because, you know, even though we signed him to an extension last year where she said he didn't understand the contract, you know, and Adams is saying that his mommy made it, you know, used his full name and he signed the contract. So let's just hope in a year from now he doesn't go back to Seattle and say, I don't understand the contract. My mom made me sign it.
Yeah,
so
it is true.
Good luck.
It is true. And Jamal in Jamal Adams' press conference today, he did say, they said, why'd you decide to sign it? He said, my mom called me and used my full name. I figured I better do it.
You better sign it.
Once
you use that government,
Agent
you
Mama.
better sign
Agent
it.
Mama. Agent Mama. He likes the Seattle Seahawks. She wants him to stay there.
Yeah, she does want him there. All right, you guys, well, let's go ahead and get on with the meat of tonight's show. We are so very excited to be adding our very good friend, Liz. I can't even begin to know how long we have been chatting with you. Liz Loza from Yahoo Fantasy. We are so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much. I know it's been, I feel like we have been connected for a decade at least.
Pretty much.
I think so.
Yes.
I think so.
that's it. I know it was before you were having babies, so I don't know however long ago
Yes.
because we were so excited for you. I love it. I love it. Well, Liz, you have just become kind of the go-to guru for fantasy football. And we are so glad because it is that time of year. I just have signed up for a couple of drafts now. I'm very excited about it. So each one of us has a little question for you. And then we have some viewer questions too. And yes, I'm going to start because you have to help us, Liz.
No,
I'm happy to help you, except I already know you can skip Lisa because finally there is
because what's the point? She's gonna lose anyway. Yeah, I
No,
understand.
because I have been telling her for over a decade to not draft a quarterback in the first round. And then Patrick Mahomes happens though, and now there is finally a quarterback that you can draft in the first round. My only contention, Lisa, is that Patrick Mahomes is not the same as Tua Tagovailoa.
Don't. So you're gonna get me in trouble with Dolphin fans. I can't say that. You're gonna get me in trouble.
No, and that's exactly it. We have been trying for years, Liz, as you well know. Lisa has always drafted a quarterback in the first round, and we've always given her such a bad time about it. But to be fair, it finally worked last year.
Football Jesus happened upon us and broke the system. Congratulations.
It did. Damn it, it did. But seriously, is it still smart to get a running back or a wide receiver in the first round? Are those still the go-to positions?
So no, is the answer. I think it depends where you're drafting and how big your league is. In a 10-team league, a little different than a 14-team league. Most people use a 12-teamer, right? If you're in one of those top 4 spots, probably you want to take that top tier of running back. Although this year there's, more questions than normal. CMC, Christian McCaffrey, is the consensus #1 overall pick, obviously a running back. Not many concerns that he'll be hurt after last year. Number 2, Dalvin Cook, usually the consensus pick. Another pass-catching running back with a dual skill set in an offense that would like to be more run-heavy. I think last year, the system got away from the Vikings a little bit. That defense was very green, so Kirk Cousins was forced to pass more. I think we'll see his numbers regress more, and hopefully, everything can go sideways as we all lived through 2020, so we know that sideways is actually the new normal. But I think the hope in Minnesota is to return to a more run-focused offense, especially as they're expecting some of these defensive players to take a leap in their second year. So Dalvin Cook, number 2. Number 3, here's where people might have some difference of opinion. I would say Alvin Kamara.
Kate?
I would say Alvin Kamara because without Michael Thomas and with Traquan Smith also being hurt, you're going to see, regardless of which quarterback they end up choosing, I mean, that's one of the biggest mysteries, a lot of pass-catching opportunities for Alvin Kamara. I love Nick Chubb. I love him, Kate. I love Nick Chubb. He is probably the best pure rusher in the NFL, dare I say. Maybe other than Saquon Barkley, just pure talent-wise, Nick Chubb, but he doesn't catch enough passes, and Kareem Hunt is also there. So just in terms of volume, we can't put him in the top 4.
Baker's got so many weapons. It's such a problem.
Jesus.
Such a problem I'm going to have this year.
But here I will say though, because I got this question earlier. So after those top 4, now you're thinking, okay, well, what about Ezekiel Elliott? Well, he was on fire. He was on fire while Dak was healthy last year, but then he looked a little washed towards the end of the season. Rumors are that he's back to his pre-shape, but the miles on the tires are pretty high, even though he's only 27, I think. Is he cooked? Is he not cooked? Does it matter? Is Dak's shoulder a problem? How healthy is he going to be? By the way, Dak opens the season. And I don't like this because in fantasy, you want to win right away. You cannot move into an 0-3 hole and work your way out. You got to win you got to go at least 2-1 the first 3 weeks. Dak opens the season, as we all know, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that defense stopped the aforementioned football Jesus Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl.
Right.
And we know that Dak's already a little impaired, and he's got to shake off some rust. And the other team, who's got Tom Brady in their ear, he knows a little bit, is going to go after a weakness and a vulnerability that we're all aware of. So they're definitely aware of it. So is Zeke, are we putting him number 5? What are the other? Probably Derrick Henry is number 5. Some people are a little bit worried that he can continue at the pace he's been going, particularly because he doesn't catch a lot of passes. Saquon Barkley, probably not going to see a full workload, also coming off of an ACL and MCL injury. I did a deep dive on his whole knee injury with an orthopedic surgeon who's the team doctor at the University of Southern California. Saquon Barkley has the toughest schedule of any top RB1. Yeah, really tough schedule. Probably a diminished workload, also more receiving options. Part of the reason he had such a great season was because he caught so many passes, but now Daniel Jones has all of these receiving weapons. So there's a couple of questions in the middle, which would lead people to say, okay, I'm going to go for a Tyreek Hill, or I'm going to go for a Devontae Adams. And then maybe when the snake comes back, I'll get an Austin Eckler, who is one of my favorite picks. Austin Eckler being paired with Joe Lombardi, who worked with Alvin Kamara, and now
Dana's writing it down.
I'm gonna draft right before Dana, and I'm gonna take him.
So you can get a top tier wide receiver, and then Austin Eckler or Antonio Gibson or who would be another one in that tier? Najee Harris. I don't like the O-line in Pittsburgh, but volume is king in fantasy, and he should certainly have it. So you might want to pivot to a wide receiver. You might still want to pivot towards Travis Kelce, who never doesn't give you at least 1,000 yards and is the number one tight end by a long shot. And then you might want to be Lisa and take Patrick Mahomes and,
and win it all. And win it all.
Oh, my God. 1 year
One
out of
time.
10. One stinking time. Oh my gosh.
Liz, where are you putting Julio now that he's in Tennessee?
Oh yeah, there you go. Good question.
That's a good question.
Well, I much prefer to have AJ Brown, frankly, because the fresher legs, and I think I moved AJ Brown up in my rankings when Julio joined because I think obviously Julio is going to command more defensive attention, and that'll further open things up for AJ Brown, who was on such a clip. I have AJ Brown as my wide receiver 7 actually. And Julio Jones, I have just inside my top 20 at number 18.
That is interesting. And, we should talk about some of the players that have moved around just a little bit. I think that is an interesting, dynamic, because you go from having, someone good throwing to them, someone bad, a more run heavy, more pass heavy, that sort of thing. I would have said a year or two ago, Chris Carson out of Seattle would have been he's a solid, except for he can't stay healthy for the life of him. But now with the new offensive coordinator and Shane Waldron, they're going to throw that ball all the time. So there's no point at that point. Yeah.
No, interestingly, Chris Carson in back-to-back years, I think he has caught close to 40 balls in back-to-back years.
That's true.
Regardless of whether Russ was cooking or not. So, and people are always afraid about the Chris Carson durability issues, but when he produces, he is lights on, and that value and the worry about his durability is being baked into his ADP. I am getting him in round 3 consistently as an RB3. As an RB2. He is my consistent RB2 target. And if it doesn't, also, it's a running back. Guess what? They're going to get hurt. It's a 17-week season. You're not going to have a running back who lasts all 17 weeks. It is nearly impossible that they're all going to stay healthy every single week. So take them early while they're healthy, and then you adjust later. It's we're all moms on this thing, right? So when stuff goes sideways, they're all going to school with masks on right now, and if it goes sideways, we'll figure it out after that.
Exactly.
God,
what the waiver wire is for.
Nailed that.
That is what the waiver wire is for. Lisa, I was going to ask about you drafting quarterback. So what is your question for Liz today?
Well, my question is we were talking about, Liz, you're talking about running backs. And we talked about this a couple shows back, how it seemed like the league is kind of gone away from a lot of the running backs. I mean, 10 years ago, fantasy started off, it was a running back first round. I get that. Remember everything, running back. Now it seems like you said, you named maybe 5 running backs that I think I would probably kind of say, okay, that's good. But it just doesn't seem like it's a running back dominant NFL anymore with the way the quarterbacks. I'm thinking more tight end. I mean, I think I would honestly go with a tight end like a Travis Kelce, and what about Pitts in Atlanta? First round, I'm talking first round, I'm talking points.
After Travis Kelce,
I want Pitts in Atlanta.
4 or 3 maybe.
I'm so glad you mentioned Kyle Pitts, because actually I am writing right now, and this will post on Yahoo Fantasy Thursday morning, every one of us is assigned a positional primer for the season, and I am doing the tight ends position.
See?
We did not plan this, but we're vibing.
You're vibing.
So to me, Kyle Pitts is like representative of the evolution of this entire position, because you have a player who wanted to be a tight end because he saw Travis Kelce doing things, because he saw Rob Gronkowski elevating the position, being more than just a blocker, really, who occasionally won over the middle, right? Like being used as kind of a hybrid wide receiver lineup. Mike Gesicki, you know this, Lisa. Mike Gesicki saw nearly 50% of his snaps out of the slot. That is not typical, or was typical, of the position.
Exactly.
But as the NFL is, trying to find mismatches in any way they can and line up mismatches instead of just your traditional inline tight end, they're looking at these athletic marvels like Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is not going to take 50% of his snaps in line. He's going to take maybe 20 of them in line. He is, but because there aren't many of these that exist, right? Like, the tinkering of this new idea is still in its early stages in the NFL. And so we don't have a ton of data. And for the offenses like San Francisco and Kansas City and, frankly, Las Vegas, that have unlocked it in Waller and Kittle and Kelce, we know their potential, but you still have other offenses like Miami trying to figure something out, like Denver with Noah Fant trying to figure it out. So the fear is that, like, yes, these athletic in fact, okay, hold on. This was an interesting stat. In 2020, 19 tight ends produced over 100 fantasy points on the season.
Wow. And I'm telling you, I think that's the way it's going. I do. Miami we have 4 tight ends, Liz, on our roster that could make this roster.
Okay, but that's also the problem, right? Because it's this brand new shiny toy. So which one are they going to use? Because for me, I don't care how many Miami has. I just want Mike Gesicki to get them all if I draft him. So, like, that's the volume issue, right? Like, I like TJ Hawkinson a lot because who else is Jared Goff going to throw to? Who's going to lead, right? Volume there. I like, even though Baltimore is known as not as a low volume passing offense, all these wide receivers are hurt. We know that Lamar Jackson trusts Mark Andrews until these wide receivers, most of whom are really young, can develop with Lamar, who, by the way, has missed time because he's been on the COVID list for a minute. Mark Andrews remains one of the major options. And then, though, after Waller, after Kittle, who's going to be hurt for a couple of minutes, for a couple of weeks, after Kelce, after Hawkinson, after Waller, now you've got a bunch of these athletic marvels who could pop, but are their offensive coordinators going to be willing to experiment enough in season with them to make it worth your while in fantasy? And that's the conundrum. Of the later picks, I like Gerald Everett a lot, Dana. I think, you mentioned Shane Waldron. That was his position coach in Los Angeles. I think he could be third. And you don't have David Moore. You don't have Greg Olsen. You don't have Hollister. There are 150 targets up for grabs in that offense. And we know that even if Russ doesn't cook, even if he just simmers, Gerald Everett, who's going in the 16th round or something, his ADP is ridiculous. Jeez. That's a great value. So if I can't get one of those top 5 options, I'm going to sit and throw a dart at Adam Troutman in New Orleans and hope the volume works in my favor, even though he's a really good blocking tight end. Or, hope that Logan Thomas continues his ascent in Washington. Or really, I'm taking Gerald Everett is my constant pick all the time.
That's good to know. I was wondering how you thought about whether or not he would fit into that. That's really interesting. Yeah, the tight ends are interesting. And then, a lot of people will say, Sonia, do you have a question? I don't want to take your question in case I run.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just going to say, because my faves are sleepers. I want to know who you got. Yes, because I love those guys.
Well, I'll say right now, so this is one that I was really happy was kind of bearing out. In the springtime, I do a rookie snapshot series, and I really, really like it because I get to start watching college tape, because I'm going to be honest, I'm too busy in the regular season to really pay attention to college tape until after the Super Bowl. And when I saw during free agency that Marvin Jones was going to Jacksonville, knowing that Trevor Lawrence was obviously going to be the number 1 pick, I was like, oh, the sleeper articles are already writing themselves. Like Marvin Jones is one of the most underrated players consecutively. So you're a Detroit fan, right?
Yeah, he's so good. Yeah. And that's why I'm so disappointed that he's gone.
He consistently, he's like a perennial number 2. I think he might be a number 1 on this offense, but he has posted 9 touchdowns in 3 of his last 4 seasons. Yep. And he has managed top 30 fantasy stats in each of those outings.
Wow.
So, and if week 1 of the preseason, let's not overreact too much though, is any indication, Trevor Lawrence really like trusts him and they connected a bunch. So I think that's like a really low end sleeper. Jamal Williams, if we're going to talk Detroit, Marvin Jones's old team, Jamal Williams, I think is a much bigger threat to DeAndre Swift's workload than people are willing to admit. Because DeAndre Swift has the draft pedigree that everybody was hoping for, but he's got a groin injury. Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn's the new OC, and he's like kind of an old school guy who likes like a smash and dash tandem. Jamal Williams produced in the 2 weeks that Aaron Jones was out, because he was the backup to Aaron Jones, obviously, in Green Bay last year. In the 2 weeks that Aaron Jones missed and Jamal Williams was given the shot to lead the backfield, he posted over 100 total yards in back-to-back weeks and was a top 10 fantasy contributor in both of those weeks as well. I think he's going to get the goal line. I think he's going to get a lot of run, and he is really, really low. Tony Pollard, not just as the backup in case Ezekiel Elliott gets hurt, but because I think he's going to see like an increase in volume. I don't know if Zeke's going to get the workload that we're all assuming he's gotten in previous years. He's a later round pick. James Conner, I think, is a good value. A younger guy, Gabriel Davis in Buffalo, I think, he's been kind of a red zone weapon. He can climb the ladder and convert on those 50-50s. And Josh Allen trusted him early in the season last year. Manuel Sanders is now there, but John Brown is not. So I think that Gabriel Davis has an opportunity, maybe not for a ton of targets, but for some really nice high value targets. And I don't mind attaching myself to that offense right now because it's pretty lit. So those are some
great sleepers. I love it. So here's the thing, we all talk about quarterbacks. A quick question. Well, 2, we're going to start with quarterbacks. Then I have a second one. Quarterbacks. Everyone says the top 5, you're going to get the same, out of. The second 5, you get the same out of. Is that really true? Is this something where you can get, and I'm going to get murdered for this, but Brady, Rodgers, Wilson, those top 5 elite quarterbacks, any of those is going to equal about the same. And then you go down to the next tier at that. Is that true? Or do you think you really have to look at the scheme a little bit more than that?
Well, I think you have to look from a fantasy perspective in your scoring formats, because the reason the mobile quarterbacks are such an advantage in fantasy is because the rushing upside that they offer you via the points that they produce is just massive. So that's why, Lamar Jackson is like a top 4 pick. He's probably not going to pass the ball a lot, but when he gets rushing and he starts scoring, like those numbers it's a little bit counterintuitive, and it's an adjustment for fantasy that you have to make, but the rushing upside produces just such big numbers. Kyler Murray is like a constant favorite. He last year rushed for 820 yards practically. Like,
wow. Well, he had no choice. He was running for his life, but yeah.
That too.
11 rushing touchdowns. 11 rushing touchdowns. Like, he was giving people over 25 fantasy points per week.
That's crazy.
So it's a little bit of a weird adjustment. I think Ryan Tannehill, if we're talking about like kind of that interesting range of quarterbacks that maybe aren't elite or on the same level, but could also, because of their skill set and their offense, produce interesting fantasy numbers. Like, what if, knock on wood, and I would never wish this, but if Derrick Henry does miss time or were to get injured, that means Ryan Tannehill is going to have to pass a lot more. And we already know that his legs provide a certain amount of rushing upside. And now he's got Julio Jones and AJ Brown. And so here's an opportunity for him to unequivocally be, a top 7 quarterback. And I don't think anyone's thinking of Ryan Tannehill necessarily in those terms.
I certainly didn't, but I'm gonna now, Lisa.
Oh, hey, take a But see, and Liz, with the point system and understand like the regular fantasies and the kind of leagues that you're talking about, I happen to know the commish personally for our league, and our quarterback league is more off of passing than it is rushing.
Because Lisa's biased. That's why.
Well, it's interesting though, Lisa, because Tua does have some rushing upside, and he's not like that deep ball is not what you want out of him. So
his deep ball isn't. I think there's a lot of problems down here with him. But I'll tell you what, our O-line, Liz, is right now. It's like it's not looking good. So he's gonna be running for his life. So
Tua's a bench player.
So that's why I'm thinking our tight ends are really like. I think Ezekie's going to have a huge year. I do, because that's his security blanket.
Well, yeah, and you saw that in the preseason too. I think Jalen Waddle is the key to unlocking a bunch of that. I love him. In fact, I do too. I'm out on Will Fuller because I'm so in on Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm just out on Will Fuller. He let me down so much. I'm so out on him. Never.
Just saying. All right, so we have a couple of questions from our fans that came. We asked them for questions and they came through. And Lisa, that first question, do you still have it pulled up?
I do. I have it pulled up.
Yeah.
Let me grab
I love this question. Go ahead, Lisa.
All right, hang on. I got to find it. Okay. It's from @Shalazar9J. It says, which one player should I keep half PPR 10 team I draft first overall? Rasheem Mostert, around 12, Stephon Diggs, round 2, Russell Wilson, round 11, Calvin Ridley, round 5, Terry McLaurin, round 12.
Well, I think the value on Terry McLaurin is going to be, like, you're not going to get him in round 12. So if you're going to give up, although, yeah,
Oh, you froze.
Oh, darn.
Don't freeze, Liz. There she goes.
Are you? Oh, okay.
Okay, you're back.
They're giving. Are they giving up the round for the player? Mm-hmm. So you're giving up a round 12 pick for.
I guess. Yeah, I guess
for
that's
the
what
players.
the
Getting. Yeah.
Okay, so I would take Calvin Ridley in that case. That
would be a good one. All right, Lisa, do you have the other one, or do you want me to read it?
This one sounds more like a personal.
I love this question. This is a question I thought you were asking, so I'm excited.
This is from @content_Ivan. How do you go about playing with friends, family, co-workers you casually play? Do you let them make their own mistakes? Last year, first round Breeze, I tried to have fun and drafted Minshew round 1 for that contest.
So how do you play your family and friends? Or
are you cutthroat, Liz? Are you cutthroat? Do you just...
First of all, this is Lisa's burner account, clearly. Totally.
You got me. Not wrong.
So I am in a couple of home leagues, and honestly, what's happened to me is that all of my home leagues are on Yahoo, obviously, and they use my rankings against me. Like they use my articles. I can never get anything off of the waiver wire. I've been in live drafts, and like I've seen my husband print something out, and I was like, "What are you printing? What is this, 2004? What are you using the printer for?"
Right?
And he's been like, "Oh, I'm printing your rankings," and I was like.
No.
We're what? Okay. And he was like, no, I mean, so I would say that like, as much as I try to, but also like, it's no fun to be in a league that's not competitive, right? Like I'm not really I'm not in any leagues with like noobs where people are playing for the first time, because that's not fair. Yeah. I do have a lot of friends. I have a girlfriend who just started a new job, and so she's trying to impress everyone. And one of her bosses was like, "Oh, we do a fantasy football league every year, and like we want you to be in it." And she was like, "Oh, okay." And she immediately texted me. She was like, "Tell me everything right now. I need a cram session." And I was like, "Well, I'll give you all my information. Just make sure it's on Yahoo."
Yeah.
She told her boss that, and her boss, who's a guy, her boss was like, "Well, it's on ESPN because that's what I've done the whole time." So, and I was like, "Oh, now we're definitely winning. What are you doing now?"
Yeah, exactly.
So
For sure.
I think I normally just answer a lot of texts from people who send
right.
me Hail Mary questions if I can get to them,
Yeah. I liked this question because, and I posted this on Twitter the other day. So I work at a hospital in the emergency room, and all of them play, like they have multiple fantasy football leagues. They will not let me play. They will not. I have begged to let me play, and they will not let me play. And their reason is I know the players too well. All of them, like all the people I work with like all my coworkers, they will not let me play because they think that I will beat them. And I'm like, I don't control injuries. I don't control, you know what I mean? You don't control that. They won't let me play. I'm real mad about that. So I was wondering if anyone let you play. So I'm glad to hear that they do.
Yeah, I also think it's a little different. I get like these I shouldn't say this. I get these like DMs on Instagram who are like, "Come play in my league." Like like the
we can beat
toxic,
you.
like I want to beat Liz Loza.
I want to dominate you.
Why would I ever say yes to this?
Right. No.
No.
Yes, I agree. I have found a couple of leagues, so I'm perfectly fine. But man, I was real pissed there for a little bit. So, all right. Well, Liz, thank you so much for joining us. I know we kept you a couple minutes longer than we said we were going to, so we appreciate it so much. I want everyone to follow Liz on Twitter. Go to Yahoo Fantasy. She will give you all her tips and tricks, and you will be able to beat the Lisas of your league. It will be
yes.
It will be
Am I right?
Good luck with that.
Liz, thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz.
You are so welcome, Dana. I thought you were going to say beat the Karens, and I was like, is she going
I am no Karen.
Lisa's our Karen.
Lisa's not a Karen.
Lisa's the anti-Karen.
No. I will forever, just last thing, I will forever love you, Cleveland Kate, for writing an op-ed blog post or article about putting tampons in clear cases at stadiums. I fell in love with you. Look at Sonia's face, by the way. She was like, did she talk about
you? I'm agreeing with you because when I went to a Lions game one time and I had my clear purse, they said, all right, let's see what's inside. I'm like, bro, it is literally clear. What else do you need?
Right.
Yeah.
But you wrote that article, like that was like what, maybe 8 years ago? You wrote that article and I was like, God bless her. I barely knew what a retweet was back then, but I have forever, ever been a massive fan of yours for saying the thing that nobody, at least at the time in charge, even thought to say, because everybody looked a certain way back then. And now hopefully the complexion is changing, but you have been ahead of the game since forever. And so thank you. I have always been incredibly inspired by all of your work, particularly that piece.
I'm so emotional right now. I just love you.
Oh, it's so sweet. Oh,
Nick Chubb forever. All right, ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz. Have a great night.
And Sonia, you're a nurse as well, right? And Dana, you work in hospitals. So God bless you. Thank you for all the work that you have done. I appreciate you as a mom, as an American. Thank you so much for all of your grace, poise, and intelligence. And Lisa,
thank you,
girl. You go get them. You go do you, honey. I love you.
You know I love you, and I will keep you posted.
You poor thing. Bye, Liz. Thank you. Oh, so sweet. So sweet. Love it. All right. Well, let me just tell you this.
You wrote notes. That's what you're going to tell me.
I have 2 pages.
You better post that stuff. You better post them notes all over that.
I didn't write anything down. I will just rewatch this on YouTube tomorrow and take notes.
Yep.
Dana, I got to tell you,
my
husband's company had an all-men fantasy football league, and he was there for 10 years, and they would not let me play. And they finally had a couple people back out, and they needed someone, and they let me play. And I beat my husband in the Super Bowl that year. And it was the last year. They disbanded the league. My name is the last name on that trophy. He doesn't even work there anymore. And it's still in somebody's office. You may jinx the hospital league. If they let you in and you win, they may take their ball and go home and not even want to play.
Ball and go home.
And the funny thing is, they would ask me, last season, they're like, well, hey, Dana, so-and-so got hurt. What do you think? I said, I'm not telling you people, you won't let me play. I'm not helping you.
Boom. Exactly.
I'm not doing it. So, well, between Liz and my friend Hanley, who you guys know, I've talked about Hanley every year I do fantasy, and his giant spreadsheet of beautifulness that he sends me every year. I'll tell you. It's awesome. I mean, I live by between Liz and Hanley, I'm solid. But yeah, I'm very excited to play again this year. So, oh my gosh, it's going to be good. Lisa, when's our draft?
It is September. You know me. I always do the draft September 5th, 1 week before the regular season, because I just don't think we should do drafts now because people get hurt, and I want people all the players healthy. Exactly. Yeah. And you know who's going to start? Who's going to start the first couple games? Like Dak? Hey, still right?
Questionable. Yeah.
So so we're going to do it September 5th. Brian, poor Brian, he's all bummed out because Dana, he took your spot last year.
Yeah.
So I'm back. He wanted to take that year off. So he texted me. He goes, "Am I still with you guys?" I said, "No, you're not. You're dumped, bud. Sorry."
We should do the draft live on StreamYard.
So,
I would
people
love
could
to,
watch us draft.
You guys do.
Of course, I'll be drafting from Jamaica. Don't be jealous.
And I'll be in the middle of Montana, so camping. So
will you have internet?
I'll be right here,
rolling on the wheel.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. So. Oh, I'm excited for fantasy this year, you guys. I think it'll be fun. I think Lisa, you're right. I think tight ends are going to be hugely important.
It's crazy the way it is.
Mm-hmm. I think that we're going to see a lot of change in some schemes that could really throw some people off or really, really help people. So I think it's going to be really interesting. So, all right, everyone, that is our show for this week. We will be back again next Tuesday live, as we always are. Now, we did the show an hour early. That was to accommodate Liz because we love her so much. But normally we'll be back 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, right here on YouTube. Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.